4-gas monitor, and then our 2 truck companies will have 2 5-gas monitors. So we will be able to replace all that with the AFG grant. And the dogs are excited.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think the parrot seconded that motion, didn't it?
Can you hear him?
I can hear him.
That's him.
Well, that's
I appreciate you guys' support with this. I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to get that kind of equipment with only the city having to pay out $6,300.
Can you do a press release on that so that we can share it?
Yes, ma'am. What I'll do is when we get it awarded, we get the official documentation. I mean, they've kind of sent us an email that said that we're getting it. I can certainly get that and share it. Yes, ma'am, 100%. That's not a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I've asked Kay to put that on our BOMA agenda tonight. I know that's not within the 2-week rule, but this is kind of time sensitive too. We want to get this signed and sent off. So if we approve it right now, then it'll be before us tonight on BOMA, providing we have 7 votes to add it, and I think we probably will. So did we get a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
second.
Got a motion and a second by Mr. Petrelli and Mr. Edwards. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Mr. Petrelli,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
and myself's an aye. That passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is discussion on a request for qualifications for State Fire Station 7, located at 1330 Drakes Creek Road, which is the resolution that we passed 2 weeks ago for that piece of property that Mr. Gilly so graciously is giving up to give to Mr. Bush so he can build a fire hall. But actually, it all belongs to us anyway. We're just one big family. So let's talk about the RFQs. Scotty.
So basically, I've written up the RFQ for that to go out. I kicked it over to Marshall and John Bradley and Steve Brown. I think all you folks on public safety got to see that. Marshall suggested a couple of changes. I made those changes and sent them back out. I would like to try to move as forward as possible, as quickly as possible with getting those put out. I think we've got to run it in the paper for a week or 2 and then move forward. I mean, we've got the money appropriated last year, about $100,000 for the drawings. And I would like to go ahead and keep that ball rolling. And then once we get those drawings back or the qualifications, we pick someone and let them decide to move forward with what that station is going to look like based on that piece of property that Mr. Gilly was so gracious to give us.
Anything from the committee? We've already approved the land, accepted it, and approved the money.
When's this supposed to go before BOMA? Do you think?
Hopefully by the end of the month. I'd like to get it out there and get that done and then get that run maybe by the middle of September. We start taking those RFQs in, we review them and score them, rate them on the system that we put in that RFQ, and then we decide from there. I don't know that I'm not sure legally if we have to come before the board to do that. I think we just need to put it in the paper. So I would like to try to move forward with that. Get with Marshall and just send it to him and let him put it out in the publications. I think we're just here to basically discuss it. I don't think it calls for any legislation from you folks.
Yeah, the money was approved to do the drawings already, and it doesn't have to come back to BOMA. It just needs to be put out in the paper. Is that correct, Marshall? I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Yes, that's correct.
Are you okay? Are you okay with the way they looked once I made those 2 additions that you recommended, Marshall?
Yes, it's good to advertise. Yeah.
Okay. So all we got to do is fill in the dates of when we want the RFQs in. I mean, that's just simply a conversation you and I could have.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I think we have to run it 2 weeks. Is that right?
It's up to us how long we run it. I mean, normally for something like this, I'd probably allow, 2.5, 3 weeks just to give the respondents enough time to put some stuff together to send to us. But I think 2.5, 3 weeks should be plenty.
Okay, all right.
I do have a question, Chairman.
I do not have a question. Do you?
What?
Do you?
I do.
Okay, shoot.
So I guess the fire station is the second or third structure that's been built during my tenure as alderman. And I guess this is just a procedural question, but how come we don't do RFPs and RFPs like this through our planning department?
Are you asking that of me?
Anybody? Marcia, do you know?
I'll
I'll
pass
take a
that.
stab at that. I
I'll
don't know.
pass that down to Marshall.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any formal policy. I think, obviously, my thought is it would depend on the department. Like, for example, for Public Works, obviously, we handle a lot of the transportation projects. So we're the ones that put out those RFQs. For in this instance, the fire chief it's his fire station. His department would advertise. And again, this is I don't think there's anything written down, of course, but it's my opinion. But
Well, the only three departments with building construction expertise would be yours, Marshall Public Works, the codes department, which is very specific, and then planning.
right.
And so with planning, I mean, there should be folks in there that have done RFPs and RFQs before, and certainly construction management. I don't feel like a building should go to either police or fire, because that's just not what they do. I think they should obviously be heavily involved, but the city also needs to have representation. But also with the planning department, they should have folks in there with construction management experience. I mean, does it make sense that it would go through planning?
I do know, kind of speaking back to what we did for fire hall number 2, obviously every department is involved in the process. Like for the stakeholders, for example, and we're all have a vested interest in making sure that succeeds. And so I know early on, we had discussions with planning and Public Works and fire, and just to make sure that we garnered all that input to make it a successful project. I think the process of putting an RFQ together, obviously, we've reviewed it. I provided input. I think after that happens, we can still be a part of the process. I don't know that it needs to be. We need to limit it to 1 or 2 departments. So we certainly can, but I think the fire chief or planner or anyone else is perfectly capable of kind of putting that together. I might not answer your question, but I'm certainly, if you want to kind of put together a plan to have 1 or 2 departments kind of be responsible for RFQs for building projects, that'd be fine. We could entertain that idea.
Well, it just seems like you guys have a pretty full plate with all of the TDOT projects and
Right.
stormwater management projects. And I know that, planning has, everybody's got a full plate. I get that, but the innate nature of a building project should fall under planning, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if Keith, I don't guess Keith is on the call to weigh in, but yeah, I can certainly have the discussion with Keith. Chief and I could talk with him and find out if he's willing to do that.
Sure. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. That's all. Thank you.
I'd like.
I've got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
It's funny you bring that up, Peg, because years ago, and it kind of happened when we built Veterans Park. We were building the softball fields over there, and Public Works was in charge of the construction, supervision, overseeing the project, and so on and so forth. I went over there one day, and they were putting the fence up on the backstop, and they had the fence 3 feet above the ground. And I asked what they were doing. They said, well, that's what the specs call for. And I said, well, that's not the way you build a backstop. Okay, that being said, what we started to do from that point on is just like a lighting project. When we build lighting projects out in the park, we went ahead and just got Public Works to kind of sign off on them. And then I oversaw all the lighting projects in the park, met with the contractors, and made sure it was done per Parks and Recs, schedules and and all the procedures. So with that being said, I'm okay with Marshall letting the fire department kind of step in, because Scotty knows what he needs at the fire department, just like we did years ago when they were doing lighting projects and fence projects and stuff like that. Public Works had an idea what they were supposed to do, but they were so regimented in saying, okay, we got to go by the book. Well, in the real world, that's not the way you put the light poles or whatever. So I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents worth in. I think having 2 or 3 departments involved is probably good too.
I would agree to that. I think Scotty, from what I can see, did a good job putting it together. One thing I asked Scotty was, has Marshall give his okay on it? And here's why I mean that, is not Public Works Director or Planning Director, is engineer. I want to see an engineer look at those RFQs. As long as, our engineering department, which is Marshall, and our planning department, architectural department, which is planning, agree with those department heads on what those should be, I feel good, especially if it's got anything to do with the structure. I don't know about backstops, but I think structures are important, that engineers and architects take a strong look at them. I think that's where Peg's going with that. It's just a good set of eyes from a professional that knows what they're doing. Pat, did you have something? Did you have something, Mr. Campbell? You are muted.
I just want to let you know that I agree with you. I think engineering and architect should be together on this project along with the fire department. And someday when we build a new police department, they need to be right in the middle of that project as well. But I think engineers need to be verifying things throughout the construction phase and the designing layout of it. So that's what I wanted to put in to add to that as well. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else any input on this?
My intent is to certainly bring both of those departments in on board with it. Obviously, once the footers are poured and concrete's laid for foundation, I think we can play an integral part in throwing walls up and how things are laid out through the fire marshal's office and making sure that things are done that way. But when we're getting into site plans and lot lines and things like that, I think that's where, Marshall and his group can play a big part. And then, of course, as far as what it looks like, how we want it to look there in Andy's Park, I think Keith has made mention of he's got some good ideas of what the exterior of that building would look like in accordance with the horse barn, just to try to make that whole area kind of look like we would anywhere else. Very, very similar. So they have had discussions with me, and I certainly will lean on them when those expertise areas are needed for sure.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on this topic? I got a couple quick questions here before we have to adjourn so General can meet. Marshall, what the first one would be for you? I really haven't kept up, or it could be for Pat. Are we done with the horse barn, the air conditioner installed and stuff that we have been waiting on?
AC has been installed. It was installed a couple weeks ago.
Okay. So we can basically call for a ribbon cutting and get that done now.
Yeah, we'll try to get the front dressed up a little bit for the ribbon cutting, but yeah, I think it's inside certainly ready.
Okay, it is a horse barn. All right, that's good to hear. Scotty, if you can take, we got just a little bit of time. We've had some back and forth. We've had discussion about a restaurant that's being rebuilt in town right now concerning sprinklers and codes and adhering to those. And there's, how that gets spread around of the city's doing this, the city's doing that. I'd like for you to just take a couple minutes and not particularly talk necessarily about that particular unit, but the guidelines that we follow, who's expected to follow those, so on and so forth. And I know that puts you on the spot. You didn't know I was going to ask that, but you should know that by heart. So can you do that for us?
That comes with the territory, so I'm good with that. It's not the first time I've been put on the spot, but basically the codes were adopted in 2018, international fire codes or international building codes. We try to work closely with the codes department, and anytime we have a tragic event where a building suffers a loss, we try to work efficiently, quickly with codes to get everything back in line with accordance of those standards and codes. We try to stay on top of it. We do stay on top of it. I mean, and we bend over backwards. A lot of folks sometimes lose sight of sprinkler systems. Sprinkler systems are really a minimum as far as implementing fire safety or fire protection systems in place. There's other things that we could go into in the code that could be much more costly. But again, we want these businesses back open. We want them making a contribution back to the community like they were doing previously. And it's important that we don't have an incident like we had in the fire service had in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and or the Ghost Ship fire in Oakland, California, where we have some loss of life. And then we get into pointing fingers of who allowed what to happen and when they allowed it to happen and why this business was not held to this standard and other businesses were. So we try to be consistent. I think that's key with anything that you're doing when you're dealing with fire protection systems. My fire prevention bureau does a fantastic job of following up with folks. We got on the Brycer system, and that's every system that has a hood system, which basically is anywhere where a kitchen's at. And we're trying to get on a regular routine of every year of getting those inspected and looked at. And that's going to help with our ISO rating. That was one thing that we went through in a couple of years ago with our ISO rating. So all this goes hand in hand to say is we want these places back open as quickly as possible. But there are codes and standards that we want them to follow. And you guys adopted those in 2018. And we certainly want to follow those and not make exceptions regardless of who the business owner is.
Okay.
I appreciate your. I
Mr.
appreciate
Free,
your
he
heart.
must have heard us talking about planning a few minutes ago, or somebody sent him a text or something. You're too late, buddy. We've already assigned you some more duties. So, thanks, Scotty. Yeah, anybody got any questions of Scotty on codes or
Well-
getting businesses back open, so on and so forth?
Well, I was just going to say, I appreciate your work on this, Scotty. I know this is a very difficult situation. I know you put a lot of work into it, and I appreciate you keeping us all informed in your emails as well as tonight.
Thanks a bunch.
That's what you guys pay me for. So I just try to stay on top of it. And I've got a really good staff that does a lot of good work for me. So I'm thankful and blessed for that.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything from the committee. Anything else to add?
Hey, Chief,
Mr.
thank you.
Lamar?
Chief, thank you guys for that grant. That's awesome work right there. Saves a
Yep.
lot of taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Lamar, anything from you? Mayor, anything from you?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep, done.
Granted.
Granted. Thank you.
Thanks.